Welcome everyone to Org Labs alignment call number 6. We skipped number 5 because it was an internal sprint review, but we're back online with sprint number 6, and we got 3 things on our agenda. First thing, how do we do payments in teal orgs slash littlefish action style? So we're gonna discuss that and kind of put our thinking hats on, and maybe if we can start thinking about that, we can implement that for the next cycle. That's one. Two, we're going to talk a little bit about Ikigai, and then how can we use that to signify intention slash commitment slash whatever we come up with. And the third thing is, Yoram wanted to be here for this one. Not sure he's going to make it, but he wants us to push forward Ikigai at the summit. So maybe we can form a task force around that and push that forward in the coming weeks. So for all this, I've got the Miro board, and I'll drop a link to that in the chat as well.
Cool.
All right, so I've got a Miro board in the chat. So we got 3 things to discuss, and payments in teal. So not even sure where we should start with this one, but how do we do payments in this way? Yeah.
Just as I was starting by Googling what is a teal organization. So maybe
knowing is half the battle. Knowing is half the battle. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
You can get a free PDF on them.
You can do a very brief summary of that. Yeah, go ahead, Newman.
Well, I was going to say that we've got a really good Miro board primer, and if we can bring that up, that might be a good sort of learning material. What do they call that? A prop or a thing to go through it. It really does sort of quickly explain it.
Is that the action board?
Is it in action? It seems like there was is one where you did the book report on the new work order, what's it? I can never remember the name of that book. Brave New Work. Yes. Brave New Work. It's not Brave New World, it's Brave New Work. Right.
Well, we don't have a teal summary there, but we should. I'm gonna find that and open that up in one moment.
Is it not in our org labs? Might be in the org labs Miro board.
All right, so this is teal in a nutshell.
Stuff here.
All right, so I think teal has 3 main points. It was self-management of individuals. So individuals kind of select their own directions within the organization, kind of pursue things that they want to pursue in line with the goals of the organization. This kind of puts into perspective the idea that the individual really knows what they're doing. They have the information that others around them who are not dealing with the same roles, responsibilities, don't have that information. So they're the best person to make that decision. And that's where self-management comes in. And to make that kind of flow, there's the advice process between individuals to make the self-management go through. So it's not just individuals making random decisions, but going through this advice process to find the best approach to things, to listen to all the stakeholders. There's evolutionary purpose, which kind of means the organization's purpose evolves over time as just directed by the efforts of the individuals within. And there's wholeness, which means you don't come into the organization with just this mask on. Oh, okay, I'm a developer now. I develop things. That is what I do for the next 8 hours. And then I go back and now I'm a husband. Like instead, you're just your entire self. And that's what a teal org is, but maybe anyone wants to add on to that as well.
Oh, well, we can talk about the color, like why it's called the teal, which is based on Graves. It's some researchers from the 80s talking about like organizational culture. And they came up with like a sort of a color code, like starting with brown or beige, and sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But the colors come from a certain thing. And I think it's red, orange, green, and then teal. Yeah.
Comes from this book. Their colors are different than what's here, but it's essentially started with Claire Graves and his work on
Claire
spiral
Graves.
dynamics.
So this is where, this is each of the different colors in that hierarchy. So red means just individual dominance. So you see that in like mafias. And yellow, no, it was amber, I think. Amber is more top-down control. So you have hierarchies, armies, governments, all of that fall in here. Most of our world operates in this orange. Orange is all about competition and profit, and it's about making things more efficient. Then we have a little bit of green, and green is looking beyond the competitive tendencies of orange. And then a teal kind of takes the best out of all the prior levels, but puts into effect these three things: wholeness, self-management, and evolutionary purpose.
And
Yeah.
the example organizations that you see up there in the top are, I don't know Bertzog, but Morningstar, which is like I guess they're known for tomato manufacturing, and
Yep.
Patagonia, which is sort of a well-known clothing brand, outdoor gear brand.
And
Mhm.
Burzorg is
Isn't
this.
it climbing Patagonia? Is that
Yeah,
what-
yeah,
the-
it's
the guy that had the huge company just made it public or decentralized or gave it away to?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yvon Chouinard. Yvon Chouinard is I think he's a Canadian.
I read about that. Yeah.
French Canadian. And then he came to the States and climbed and was just an all around like renegade type. But he's busting up the thing, and they've made a thing called the B Corp. He's sort of managed this thing called a B Corp. It's like it's sort of a new revision of the corporation bylaws in the States, I think, or maybe it's international.
It's international now.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
share just something just at a high level. Each of the levels in those charts has a breakthrough that made them do things. So like red impulsive breakthroughs was division of labor and top-down authority, which for the first time allowed human beings to create massive projects. Examples would be like the pyramids or things like that. Amber conformist had breakthrough of replicable process, stable organization charts. Examples of this would be like militaries or religious organizations or institutions and schools. Orange, the achievement level, their breakthrough was innovation, accountability, meritocracy. And they really kind of envision organizations as machines. And then green, the pluralistic, their breakthroughs were empowerment, values-driven culture, stakeholder value, and saw the organization's families. And then, as Chakan said earlier, teal, their breakthroughs were really around self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose are the big things. So that's kind of the new thing that we're trying to figure out and really learn as a group of how to do teal. And really self-management, the biggest thing is it's really about taming the ego. Wholeness is, there's a yearning for wholeness. So you want to show up as your full self, not just as your professional face. And then evolutionary purpose is, as was mentioned earlier, organizations tend to start to create this field of purpose that isn't controlled by any one person or thought or vision. And really the goal or the thing that's called upon here is to pay attention and to sense where the organization wants to go as a whole and really help manifest that. Rather than thinking, oh, we could go here and try to make a plan to do that, it's really paying attention to what's already arising and kind of help push into that direction, which is kind of a weird, different way of thinking about things, but I think it's a really cool idea as well.
And that idea of organization as a living being. That kind of connects with all the school of fish idea that we have,
Mhm.
Mhm.
all the mycelium, all just naturally organizing organisms.
This is really, really interesting. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. Yes, yes.
Cool.
In light of that, like in a orange company, the payments would just be, okay, you just agree on the price, I guess your wage, and that is kind of set by the boss. You kind of accept it, or you just take your hat and leave. But until things like this happen, like when a downturn happens, usually what a company does is just fire 20% of the staff, right? In a teal, what they instead do is just come together, say, guys, we kind of need to cut back on our spending, so let's all take 20% less. Then nobody gets fired. Everybody just takes 20% less. So those are the ideas in teal related to payments. But how do we kind of connect that with actions and what we kind of do? Because at this stage, it's been difficult, kind of like deciding who gets how much. Then it doesn't really make sense, and it's not very fun. So really want to move away from that. So want to think about that, brainstorm about that, and then move away from that model to something that we can that is more teal.
Money's always hard to talk about.
Oh yeah.
It's just so, I mean, I think that's one of the things, because I grew up in one of these limited resource mindset organizations and institutions. It's just, and it just pervades everything. Like in learning institutions, like that learning was, like a discrete unit, like a money, and that you had to like grab it before it was all gone. And, it's just, it's tough. It's tough. So there's some mindsets that can shift,
So are we talking in general about payments, or are we specifically talking about sprint payments?
Well, we're talking in general payments in teal, and then probably from a discussion from that, we could model it on littlefish in general. And maybe we come up with a way to do sprint payments. That could be a method to do it, to try it, maybe. The idea is to kind of find a model that fits with what we're trying to do.
Here's a point, and I know we can go to raising our hands and stuff. But one of the things that I sort of sense and feels good to me about the ecosystem, like what's going on, just sensing like what's happening around, is the open payments. It's like being able to see what what is being paid for and the rationale behind it. Like that for me is an example of teal-ish or new organization, because then you can see it's like, oh yeah, that's an important part. I'm glad that's it just I don't know, it takes a little bit of the secrecy and the literally shadiness, like out of the light kind of thing. It's just like, okay, oh, these are open books. Especially I really like to see the expenses, like hard costs, and the incomes. It's like, okay, this is what comes in. That's a known. These are the expensive. That's the known. I like the idea of the open books. It's like, why is that secret?
Mhm. I think a lot of teal orgs have open accounting systems. Some of them have like very open salary lists, so you can look up how much anybody in a company makes. And other ones even go as far as each person in a company sets their own salary and says, this is what I want per year. And they have a committee that kind of reviews it all and can go to the outliers and go, hey, I think you're undervaluing yourself. You did this, this, and this. You should be asking for more because this is kind of the company average around that. Or they can go to the other extreme and say, hey, you may be over asking here based on what other people are doing. So there's a balancing mechanism there, but it's very open and interesting cycle. And kind of like the whole mental process that goes into that.
And it shifts over time, right? So it's sort of like, you know, this year, this quarter, this sprint, someone did a lot of work, and then this next period of time, someone didn't. And so like being able to shift quickly, with agile, you know, like that is important. Yeah.
I think there's that
And-
component as well. So some people may be more um, permanent in the organization, and in a way they have sort of a participation of the roots of the organization. And it's a lot different than someone that just was brought on board to do a few hours of work. It's tricky things. Like we said in the beginning, it's always tricky to be weighing things, but there are the roots also, I think, have value a bit.
Mhm.
And Chekan, I have a question for you. So you mentioned that in teal organizations, people come together and they decide, okay, if the bounty payments or the action payments go up or down. So what is the problem with that method when it comes to us? If we just come together and say, hey, this is what it is, and this is how it will be.
You know, it could be that way. The thing is, we kind of need to manage the runway as well. Like those of us making that decision needs to take a look at the whole thing, and kind of that needs to do the risk management. So um, it's definitely something that we could maybe try in a smaller way and see. But uh, what I'm trying to do is kind of try to manage the community side and the startup side of what we're doing. So um, it's kind of weird to think about it in both of those terms, because okay, we're a startup that we have a runway, we're gonna end in this amount of time. Like that's one thing that's real, and then another part of that is real. Okay, we have a community of contributors that we need to enable financially. So it's kind of like, and these things are clashing. They're in clash mode. So
So what are the main points of clash, as in which points are bothering you the most? Like if you had to be specific.
okay, so well, we want to pay well for the tasks, but when you pay well, your runway just decreases, and then you can't pay anyone. So you kind of need to pay enough so that everyone feels compensated for what they're doing, but also kind of need to maximize your runway so that you have the most amount of time to live. And if you kind of go one way, people won't be feeling happy about those payments, and they're going to pull back. So you're kind of losing your community and your members and the people who are doing the work. And otherwise, you're spending too much, and then you're just dead in 4 months. So like,
You're
and the
dead
only way
either
to get
way,
out
yeah.
of this is to just like get funding. Like the only way out is to get funding is in time. Like,
I think it's important to think about, like, we can't get funding forever. So what's the path to profit? So where's the income stream, and how do we build towards that? Where's the money going to ultimately come from? Who is paying for what is kind of the question we should be trying to figure out, so that we can map, when do we get there? What's our runway? What does it look like? And then, yeah. And the second thing that I wanted to toss in is C4C is experimenting with the idea of shares. So we have like a Sprintly group bounty, and say it's $5,000. And then we try to calculate how many shares does a person have in that sprint based on the contributions and the things they did. And then we divide those shares up by the total, and however many shares you have, you get that. So it's a way of splitting it up so that some people might not contribute a whole lot one sprint, and so their contribution's less. Other people get more. It's like you mentioned earlier, if we're in lean times, we're all splitting a smaller pie rather than having to fire people. Or it's just kind of this group kind of agreement that, okay, we're a little bit lean this month, and we're all going to take a little bit of a shave rather than one person getting nothing or being let go.
that idea of shares and sprints. And regarding funding, we got something cooking for that. That was a big
Fun
one.
10?
Huh?
Fun 10, fun 10. Let's get on it. Let's get on fun 10.
Font 10 is okay. Like that's not. It's just it's temporary.
Yeah, true.
We got
Oh, so big plans. Okay.
Different plan. Okay. All right.
talk about it.
Well, there is something about like the value chain. Like I have a personal principle or a personal belief that there's value in the community interaction and relationship. It has a personal value. And in the sort of, this is like gets into the tokenomics area, like how to generate that value and then turn it into like fiat, rent paying, bill paying, tax paying value or income. And that's sort of what I keep my eye open for, because there are things that I pay for, there's things that I pay fiat for, and I don't think Harsha is going to make me a sandwich or but the things that I do, it like has the value of a sandwich. It's like, oh, I would gladly give up a sandwich to do the accountability sessions or the little work sessions that we do. So it's like, oh, okay. So there is a calculus there that, it seems like there is something, but then, thinking about the organization as a living thing and how to not take the extractor mindset to it, like we're just chopping down our own tree as opposed to harvesting the fruit when it produces fruit.
So I have a small idea just in terms of dividing up like payments, specifically when we are paying for actions and the payment itself has intricate value and hence like the payment might or might not make sense in different parts of the world, right? Because in India, like littlefish would have been amazing. I could have lived like a king working at littlefish. In Michigan, like I still like struggle to like get by, you know what I'm saying? So is there a way, depending on the amount of treasury, so we focus on different parts of the world to build communities from different parts of the world? This is just an idea, I'm throwing it around.
And just to sort of phrase what you said is that fiat money in certain communities can go just a tremendous amount farther. That we really, if we focus,
crypto can go farther in certain communities. Fiat is just fiat.
Yeah, income can go a lot farther for certain communities, like living in different areas of the world. Michigan versus New York City versus Guatemala or something. Yeah, I think that's something to really look at. I think that sort of fits into the income arbitrage sort of spot. Working in a high economy, living in a low economy. High and low might not be appropriate, but
yeah, money definitely goes further in certain places and less in others. One thought I had, the lottery here in BC is really big right now, so I bought a lottery ticket.
700 million.
Just thinking about the way that works when you win, you can take a lump sum payout, or you can take a certain amount over a period of time. That could be another way to stretch our funding to say, you can get 100 ADA now for your task, or 200 paid out over the next year, or whatever that math is. And that'll allow like more actions, assuming that we keep growing and more funding and profit or whatever it is comes in later. We can bump some of the value to the future rather than paying it all immediately with limited funds. If we're assuming things are going to become much more vibrant in this community and grow, and that's one way to do it as well, to stretch the pot, especially for those who can't.
Nori, first of all, I want to answer your question. Who will decide our payments? So the system and the market price will set it up. So when we have the final version, I mean the first usable version of the system, the system will match us with different network organizations. So all of us will be able to work there in terms of hours. So we will share our experiences in organizations and we will get our money and get our NFT in return. So till that point, I'm offering you. I think you all of us believe in the project, right? So we can have a token distribution for this group and early contributors, and we can expect it to grow by time. So we have a summit next month, and we will explain all the things to the people there. And after that, we have a master plan and a roadmap. So based on our roadmap, we can distribute some of our tokens. Maybe next year or maybe 6 months later. I don't know the exact time, but we can have such kind of distribution. What do you think about that?
Will there be a littlefish token?
Yes.
Ah.
Maybe
Oh.
we are not sure for the name, but there will be a token. Definitely.
I think that makes a lot of sense, specifically for the when the treasury is up or down. We can divide up the rewards, right? Like if our treasury is like full, we can say you'll get like 90% in ADA and 10% in littlefish tokens. And if the treasury goes down, we can say, okay, 70% or 50% in this and 50% in that, like so.
Yeah, all of us will push for the best scenario in that case.
Mm-hmm. Plus, if you need the fiat, you can sell the little fish at today's price and get the fiat. Or if you believe in the project, you can leave it in to let it grow over time. So it's like an investment or belief in the future. So I think, yeah, that's a nice way of doing it.
So right now we can decide what to get in ADA. Okay, so we can have some assumption over that one over our token, and we can distribute some part, maybe say 1% or 2% of the token to the initial community members. This can be a solution, or we can have them based on the number of actions or the impact that we made. I don't know. I'm just flashing my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into the tokenomics part, but because it's a whole can of worms. But that what Harsha said really makes sense to me. Yeah, the
Which part?
balance of that you know, depending on how things go, we can get more in ADA or in the token, meaning that the token is something that the organization can release for usually for more long term. Hope is, so it's more like a betting on the success and growth of the organization. That token will value, but the value to be kept is tricky.
So we could easily do something like this. Just we already have launched a token, I think, back all the way like 9 months ago, Jem.
Yeah, we have.
So we already have like a bunch of tokens that have no value, right? What we can do with that is say that is worth X amount of X percentage of the real token when we launch it, when we do the tokenomics, and when we really work hard on it, the utility is done, everything is done. So, but that is this token right now is worth, let's say 5% of it, and then we can make payments with that. And when we launch the actual token, the holders of this pre-token will get that 5%. Like we could do something like that, and we can start working with that like I don't know, like 2 days. Super
No,
easy.
but if we immediately start working with that, I do think people still need to pay their bills. I think most of us do. So we need to wait until we have liquidity pools to truly like, you know, do something about the tokens.
Okay, like this wouldn't replace all the payments for sure.
Mm.
It would be maybe like a way to, like I like the idea of it being optional. Like if you don't care, don't, no, I believe in this too much. Don't give me ADA, whatever this shitcoin. Give me littlefish token. Like just pay me in that. Like, we'll pay
That's
you.
the thing,
whatever.
you know, while you don't have a liquidity and market and all that, it's basically just a fixed rate that the organization is establishing. So it's 5 cents of an ADA or something like that. And in the end, you're the only bank for that. You're the only place that where I can redeem, and you make the price at which you're available to exchange the little fish token with ADA. Yeah, but it's feasible as long as the numbers add up and that you have the liquidity in ADA to service
Since
that
you
price.
since you mentioned a bank anyway, and we are literally what we are doing is staking, right? So we should get staking rewards as well if that's the case. Because right now, what we would say is we do not have liquidity to convert them. So we leave them be and like get staking rewards or whatever rewards. Right. Since we're a bank, because bank gives like a shitty 0.4% rewards, right?
You're meaning to say that the house's token also has staking rewards?
Yeah, specifically because if you do not want to withdraw it immediately, say Littlefish doesn't have the treasury to immediately like liquidate it and like get ADA for it, then in that case, like people will have to leave it be for some time, and you know they would expect staking rewards, right? If you're investing the money somewhere.
Okay, but do you know if that's something that exists currently? I only think of rewards for ADA. I'm not sure if
It's on the roadmap. SPOs are going to be able to have multiple token stuff running in their stake pool.
Okay.
That has to do with Babel
Thanks.
fees, I think, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking of Babel fees, but yeah, Babels are more like for the fees, not for the staking itself. Newman?
I will, yeah, thanks. I will throw this in because money and organizations, here we are in the organization labs, like it's absolutely fundamental, and that we have the ability to change the money, follow the money is kind of a thing. We can also change, like this may go hand in hand with sort of organizational change. So I think this is really valuable conversation, just by way of comment. I'm not following it 100%. I kind of have a weird relationship with DeFi, liquidity pools, marketplaces, stuff like that. But I'm happy to get into it because it feels like this is a good testing ground for that.
Has anybody looked at some of the existing kind of things like Coordinate? I just put it in chat. And other systems where people have put a lot of thought into how to compensate for Web3 contributions.
We have a community member, Dan Mercurius.
Oh, Mercurius.
He created a enhanced automated self-reporting tool. He got funded in Fund 7 for it. I'm going to share it in the chat. There's a bunch. There is work that's being done on this. And this is more, his tool is more about like reporting, not necessarily but just sort of maybe in like in the way of actions, but there he's got an automated flow and things. But Coordinate, I'm sorry to just jump in. That was kind of a
no worries.
a DAO native solution for contributor rewards, feedback, and all things people. Coordinate.
But
Yeah,
this one individual rewards another. Is that how it works?
I'm not sure. I've read a couple. There's Coordinate. I forget what the other one was called. But there's a way of doing different ways of, one of them is like totally Git based and commit based, and it's very developer centric. But other ones have multiple tokens where everybody receives a certain amount every sprint or whatever, and you have to give them away. So you give them to the people you think contributed the most. And then once they're all distributed, then those are converted to actual payouts. So it's really based on others seeing your value and contributing. And there's a bunch of different mechanisms like that I've seen floating around that may align or not with some of our teal principles, but it might be worth a deep dive into some of these just to see. There might be some good ideas there.
great next action that we can take. We can explore these and then take a look. And also the liquidity pool, we should probably take a look at that as well. Those will maybe give us some ideas. Great.
Oh, but I think the liquidity pool will put us in a position where the price is market dictated, which may not be sustainable. And if we go with the approach that we set the rate, we don't really need a liquidity pool. Am I seeing it correctly? Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Like I'm very, I have
Okay.
very little knowledge about how liquidity pools work. But
Okay.
I would like to know, to see it. Like,
I think we can test it with a token, pseudo token,
yeah,
and learn what's going on there.
yeah, for sure. Like we don't even need to have the basic idea that I mentioned with like 5% of the actual token is the token we have now. Like we don't even probably need a liquidity pool. We just pay out from,
Exactly.
here you
I
go,
think
just
that
like
would be
Gimbal Labs
safer
does.
initially.
It's like
Yeah.
200 gimbals for you, 500 for you, 200 for you. And then at the end, we would just compare how much each person has, and that has a relationship at the end.
I dropped a few other links. There's seeds, and then SourceCred is another one that's very
Oh
similar.
yeah, SourceCred blew up. Like I had that down. Like we should investigate why it blew up. It didn't work.
It didn't work?
It didn't work. They quit the core team.
Oh, really?
I think it was something like their main thing was just emojis in one channel. Where everybody sent an emoji and comparing those emojis. Like if you had 10 emojis, then you get 10%, that kind of thing. And that
Mhm.
didn't work for obvious popularity contests. Can't be turned into money reasons.
But then it's definitely worth looking into because we need to learn from failures and not do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
They're great. I'm gonna add these up to the work.
Yeah, but
Useful
seeds has always been
information.
an interesting one to me because they're kind of environmentally kind of leaning and regenerative stuff, and they have a bunch of tools about how to do stuff.
I think Metagame was using seeds. Like, if you know those guys, those guys are pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Very cool. Right, I think we have some next steps as well. But if you have any idea, any experiment we can run on these, would love any of those. Like if you could put them down on the org labs conversation there, and during the week, if you have an idea, share it. Let's talk about it, and then maybe we can run that experiment.
I
See
have
how
a
it goes.
small idea just to discuss. Since the whole idea of sprint is efficiency, to make all the individuals in the organizations more efficient, instead of like increasing the reward, like I mentioned previously, can the reward itself be sprinted? As in 2-week sprint, you get the reward after 2 weeks, so that there is an immediate adrenaline, like, rush.
Well, if you have a nice system of payment that is easy to do, like, oh yeah, we know this sprint is X amount, super easy to compute. Yeah, sure. Then I think it would be much better to have that direct feedback cycle, for sure. But it just needs to be simple because it's a chore to actually, okay, compute payments and then do it. And yeah, it's not fun.
Someone needs to make a button that gets pressed and does the magic.
It's
Yes,
coming. It's coming.
I'm writing down magic button. I'm writing down magic button.
Magic buttons.
Well,
Automate everything. People don't want
yeah, Mr. Spacely made me punch the button 10 times today. I'm exhausted. That's a George Jetson's joke from 50s cartoons, but I think that's a really important point. I know that we're switching gears, but the feedback loop, in order for me to be incentivized to do something, the incentive has to come close to the time that I do the work. It's kind of, this is old Skinner behavioral, conditioning. And unfortunately that does work. So I think that speed is of the essence. It's sort of whatever system we involve, it really could be is getting work to payment or incentive as close as possible in the time spectrum.
So, but for that, we also need to take into consideration the stage, the validation stage. What do you call that? Shakan in the Kanban? It gets from done,
Review.
it review. Yeah.
Right. The PA
Yeah.
review process. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to work out. I mean, as fast as possible, but no faster, I guess.
Because you don't want to go, you don't want to ignore the reviews. That's what I was pointing out.
Yep.
I think we can try and find our way with this. Like we
Yeah.
just need to come up with a method to try, and let's see how it works, and then iterate. And then if we do that a few times, then we come to a point that is easy. But at that time, like we'll be super rich because littlefish token is gonna blow up. We're gonna have NFTs that are worth like trillions of dollars. So you just worked for nothing for all those months because your NFT is now worth $1 million.
I just bought my first NFT for 125 euros today.
Wow.
But I was just buying 40 euros each, and now I'm starting to get creative. I think I would love to go and create these collections. I'm looking at Gem right now and say, maybe let's make some NFTs, like littlefish NFTs.
Oh
So-
man.
Good.
We're gonna pay Lucas all in NFTs.
Yeah.
We're gonna be the
Okay.
richest among us.
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
But it's really insightful, really interesting. Maybe I just got bit by the NFT bug in terms of art getting valuable and everything, but I think it's really nice that you can create and make a community and a project out of it, out of a creative idea. It's really
Mhm.
fascinating.
Mhm.
But also we need to know the quality of the community, because I have been in so many ETH communities and a lot of NFT Cardano communities as well. They come quickly and also they go quickly. So if you bought an NFT,
Yeah.
make sure you love the NFT and you don't mind it being in your wallet forever.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like the fashion of the week. Often.
Mhm.
I think that was great on payments. It's a lot of ideas, a lot of things that a lot of threads that we can pull forward. But we can move on to the next one, which is using Ikigai as a tool to showcase your intentions or your commitments. So had this idea, like been thinking about in the context of decentralized organizations like us. How do you go from like a community member, just a participant, to like a core member? Where is the line? There's no line. It's all blurry. Like, is there a difference between a team member or anything? So thinking along those lines, one thing that came up was like, okay, commitments. I made a commitment. I will do X, Y, and Z for the next 3 months, for example. Like once you state that, you just made a promise into the future. So you're kind of coming into like an agreement between the organization and yourself. So, but then couldn't quite formulate that in my mind, in my conversations, but then realized, oh, this falls in line very beautifully with Ikigai. But then Ikigai is not so solid like a commitment is. So you say, I love this. Does that mean you're going to do it? Not really. Uh, but you say, I'm good at this and I want to be paid in this. Okay, that's cool. But kind of need to have a way of connecting that information on an Ikigai board to like an intention, something that we can just point to. Okay, you said you do this. Now all your actions, oh, you did it, awesome. Or you didn't do it, but now you can reflect on it. So kind of build a system like that. If we could build that, if that can be a part of our product, I think that would just be a beautiful way to just like a human way to signify that connectedness between organizations and people.
So
Thanks.
are you talking about reconciling the organization's Ikigai with the individual's Ikigai?
No, this
Or
is the individual's Ikigai, but it is in relationship to what they do in the
to his
organization.
track record? So it's not so much the organization versus the individual, it's more the individual statement versus his track record of actions. Yeah,
This is like a your Ikigai to versus you're gonna fill it up in the future. Like the track record
yeah,
comes into play in the future. You say like, I want to work on this. Like this is my Ikigai for the next 3 months in littlefish, and that's kind of like my intentions in littlefish. And then in 3 months you can come up and say, okay, here are my actions that I did this. It kind of falls in line with my Ikigai. Oh, this is completely unrelated. That type of thing.
Ikigai is kind of an agreement because we have that fourth circle that says what I can be paid for. And if you're not paid for it, that's not your Ikigai. It's passion or vocation or one of these other things. And I think that's where this could fit in, is if somebody commits to saying, I will do this for the next month, and then the littlefish group that you're part of says, okay, we'll pay you for that, or reward you if you do actions in that space, then it becomes your Ikigai because now you're paid for it. Otherwise, it's not. So I think there is something there where you can pull in that fourth circle a little tighter, because I don't think we're actually treating that as it was intended. Like what I can be paid for isn't a personal thing. It involves agreements with the external, because that's where money comes from.
supply and demand market.
Yeah. So Ikigai isn't 100% yourself. That fourth piece, and maybe even what the world needs, those two require community and support. And it's that relationship or commitment level stuff that makes those actually fill out properly.
Oh, yeah. And it could be just the individual's way of saying, like, I'm expecting to be paid for this type of work, but I will also be doing these things because, oh, I love this, so I'll be doing that just because I love it. I'm just going to be a happy, fun person. And then you just do that because you love it. But I don't expect to be paid for that, but it is a part of it. So having money be part of the conversation, but not the entire conversation. I think it's important to normalize how we talk about money as well. It's not a taboo. It's just one of the things. It's just one of the things in your Ikigai. It's a good way to communicate that information in a more neutral way. How can we turn that into like something we can pinpoint to? Like, is it a commitment? Does it come with like time promises? Because when you say commitment, I'm expecting something I can pin my hand down. Like, oh, you mean 10 hours a week? You mean software development? You're gonna develop this many. Like you're gonna develop these features, or you're gonna design this thing. Something that is tangible that we can say, okay, you did it or you didn't do it.
And that's how that put a pin on it, put your hand on it, that we can trust it as an institution. That's what we really need to build organizations around, right? Like that's a necessary component. Because, and I don't know if this is everything, but you know, your fun, you know, what you're in the mood for can sort of change. It's just like, yeah, I love to read books. When was the last time I read a whole book? You know, it shifts. It's a tough thing. And but when you make a commitment to something, then organizations or systems work. I mean, yeah, I think that's how it goes.
So how do we specifically in this idea? How do we make sure that there is no judgment involved in the process? Like, for example, I make a commitment, I don't fulfill it. It's like something for me to learn rather than the community to judge me upon, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. I think the idea there is to just the wording is important. So when you say commitment, that's okay. big deal. Intention is something else, but there is a balance that needs to be made there, because this kind of reflects back on that accountability idea. Like, you put it out there as your intention, your commitment to keep yourself accountable by just putting yourself in that peer pressure mode of I'm out there now. I said I will do these things. Now I feel responsible. So that's kind of a good thing if we can balance it out. Like, because otherwise we're just prone to just wallow by. But if you have that little bit of a push from the community and just that idea of doing it, like the book, you can have it. Oh, I love reading books, and it's in my intention. Now I feel responsible to my communities to say I'm going to read 5 books because I said I would. Like, that also kind of falls in line there as well. But there's a good balance to be met.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's like a commitment, and if a commitment is almost like an official document, shouldn't we like make it official then, instead of keeping it in Miro? Because like I can all of a sudden, like I'll make a commitment, next day come delete it. Oh, cool, no commitments.
Oh, for sure. Like, yeah, Newman.
I got something. Now I remember it now. Because this whole idea of commitments, and I think it's something that we discussed in the C4C, because there's a commitment that I make to my organization, says I will read 5 books, and then the organization makes a commitment to me. It's kind of like a contract that says I will give you this for those. I'll give you 100 somethings, or I'll give you a special thing. Man, a sandwich, so good every once in a while. And that feels kind of like a smart contract. It's sort of like, okay, and then you can have escrow, you know, because you used to think, oh, smart contract or contracts, lawyers, but no, we can automate that. It's just an automated market maker, you know, super simple, a part of our app. And it's just like, oh yeah, I make this commitment. And that way we can kind of, you can prepay, again, going back to that, and this is just an idea, going back to that, you know, the payment has to be quick, and the validation. You know that the money or the 100 or the sandwich or the cool NFT is there. It's, you can see it. It can't be taken away. It can't be. That's not part of the fickle thing. And you know that. So the organization that has put up in their commitment, fulfilled their part of the commitment, and you fulfilled your part of the commitment. I don't know. I just think that that's the special sauce of Web3, and that's where, you know, switching hundreds, thousands of these commitment, two-party commitment and dispersions, you know, every day. Yeah, I think that that's a valuable, see what I mean? Like, that's, now it's changed, you know, it's not like, oh, somebody has to go and see it and approve it. No, that can be automated in the middle, and us humans on the edges, like doing the stuff. That's cool.
Sorry.
Maybe I'm laughing at my own joke, but that.
Does the current MVP of the app already include this type of escrow functionality? It does, right? You post the thing, you post the action, it gets, the fund is locked there, or not so much?
Right now, the system is just, we just mint it for an X amount of price. So we
Okay.
just say, as the producer, you set a minimum price, and then the
Right.
person who buys it mints it, and they give you like, if you said my minimum price is 50 ADA, then I can go ahead and mint it for at least 50 ADA.
But you're minting what? Sorry.
I'm minting the action.
The action NFT.
Mhm.
And then how does that action NFT get redeemed for the value for that task? Does that not happen? No, Harasha is just saying hard no.
No, I think I mean, I don't know if I'm right, but as far as I know, the actions become NFTs after the action is done, right? So not before, it's not like a bounty, it's a completed action, and people are
Right.
rewarding the completed action.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
resonate with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the rewarding pay or the rewarding / payment of the action happens afterwards. Is that it?
Yeah, but the action is the NFT itself, like with
Okay.
big A, capital A. That's the NFT itself, and that NFT can be like multiple things that you did. Like it doesn't just have to mean, okay, I designed this thing. No, it can mean, oh, I worked on this to give a bigger context, just like the one we've been doing in the past week. You've been doing the action summaries. So that can be an action. And that action kind of makes more sense to just like give you the context instead of like, I wrote this doc. That doesn't really make sense. Why did you write that doc? But I did this, and the big context. And that's my action, my NFT. So it's multiple things. So it can be
Okay.
related to
So it's a
multiple.
registry of what you've done.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But does that also mean multiple people can be on an action? If 3 people worked on a similar thing, it, same thing. So basically we are grouping actions, right? To give it a context and a greater meaning.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Like that's one of the things that we really want to hit, like reward sharing. We want to build that in so that once that NFT action gets sold, everyone who really has put in the work gets a profit. So like you're working with Joss and Justin on the design project. So you say, I did 33%, 33%, 33%, you get that share that way. Otherwise, you would all have to create something to create different actions, but it doesn't really make sense because it's like a team project. So yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking of as a sprint, as like a big compostable action. It's just like, here's a sprint and it's got all these little actions in it, you know?
Oh yeah,
That could be cool.
that could be one action. Yes, it makes quite more sense. And we're just experimenting our way with like what those actions look like so that we have a good way of displaying that information. And soon, hopefully, we'll be displaying the information on the app. So it's going to make much more sense just instead of talking about it, that we'll be doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question, Harsha, like what was it about? Um, should we not be doing this on Miro so that we can store these, right? So crazy idea. Why don't we put them on on the blockchain as like an NFT? So that's an idea. That's a building block that we could use. But maybe it's just too much info, you know? It may be, you know, but it as a building block next to actions. Just think about that, like you're inside of this community that you want to be a part of. You say you come in, you find through their Ikigai, through C4C's Ikigai, you know what they need, and then you come in, you say, oh, I have these skills, I intend to do this in your in C4C. You put that out there. It now exists on the blockchain, so peer pressure is on. So you're burning. You said you would do these, and then you kind of have to produce. Like that incentivizes you to get it done.
Peer pressures you to get
Well,
it. Doesn't
that's
incentivize.
that's like blockchain pressure, man. Live forever. Like the entire humanity is watching you. Like all the future generations are judging you.
There was this job interview I did where they literally said on the job description or the post, we are big proponents of, and then they had the initials for do what you said you would do.
Mhm.
You know, so
Right.
it's apparently a thing in the work market, the do what you said you would do thing.
And also, if you had to put it practically, what does it boil down to? So if I say I'll work like 20 hours, there are say 3 bounties or 4 bounties in the list that I did, but it didn't take 20 hours. Like how do we like in real time like say, oh, I really like stood to my commitment?
Right. So that would all boil down to how do we structure those so those kind of things are explainable, or better yet, like don't happen. Like so that's the thing that we got to kind of figure out in this context.
Mhm. What do you guys think about, like, there's stuff where you commit to something, you do it, there's a artifact or something to say, proof of work. And that's one thing. And it's very easy to do in D work or create bounties or actions around that. There's the other stuff where there's all that sand in between that kind of doesn't get tracked. And it's people supporting teammates on Discord or setting up different things to make it all work smoother or more harmoniously, or building relationships, or there's a whole bunch of stuff there that we don't traditionally pay for. And kind of getting back to Jem's kind of 8 types of capital or whatever that list was, there's a lot like spiritual or mental or emotional kind of support and value. How do we recognize those things? And is it something we financially reward, or are there other rewards for doing it that are intrinsic?
At the end, we want to use 8 forms of capital in littlefish. So we don't want to only use the money or the financial system. So we have lots of things to consider. For example, the spiritual part. People can have some belief tokens or some sort of thing, and people can use that tokens in other colonies or other people, so they will show their trust to that person. And I don't know, some of them will be exchangeable in between. Not the belief, but we can have some social influence as a capital, and in return we can give some ADA or fish tokens, and vice versa. We are thinking of implementing such kind of system, but not now. Maybe in 3 months or something like that. If it
But I like
answers
the-
your question, Nori.
Mhm.
I think ADAO does something like that. There was a point in time when they were doing projects for like others. And they, for example, they did a project for Rats DAO and they received like a Rats token reward for it. And maybe we can look into how they're managing all these tokens in their treasury.
Does the RATS token have value?
It dropped significantly, but it
But
does.
it does. Okay, you can exchange it on taxes for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Coming back to that point, Nori, like adding on to what Jem was saying, the idea with the 8 forms of capital, one of them is experiential, which is just action. It's beautiful. And what that brought on was like, oh, you can convert everything into action. Why not? So you can say in your action, like you did a review, for example, Newman is doing his review. He kind of goes and says, Harsha kept me accountable. Like that goes unrecognized usually, but it just got recognized. It's in the action.
Yeah.
So like all of that information just inside the story can go inside the action. Now we recognize it. Like it doesn't mean like, oh, you just got paid for it. Like we bought the action. Sure, you got paid for it, but that wasn't what got paid for. But it is recognized. It's part of the bigger picture now. Like it will live forever. Like
I can see that. I can see that. I always think of Nori like that. We call it, like in basketball, as the role player. You know, the Dennis Rodman of the championship Bulls teams. Like he really wasn't great. He didn't score. He did get a lot of rebounds, but he did like the grunt kind of work. Like he took fouls. He did all the stuff. Gave fouls.
But he was famous for rebounds.
That's true. That's true. It's not the best example. It's not the best example. There's a bunch of players on teams that do like real work and suffer, but they all win the championship ring, you know. Unfortunately, they have to hawk that to pay for their concussion treatments. But this is beyond the point. Beyond the point. But I like just to sort of go between and summarize a little bit in the context and story, all of the little pieces that make up the action that it is, and then you can get other types of capital. I think that there's probably good, like, you know, recognition type rewards. And that may be, that may come from my old mindset. It's just like, yeah, we give dad a bunch of money and we give mom a birthday cake, and, a thank you. That, yeah. And who's to say which is better, or, I think that those things happen well when the sort of needs are, like, basic needs are sort of met, and that if everybody, that gets into a bigger thing. But the idea of that there are these other parts to the system, like once we start recognizing whole systems and like how they fit together, that there are other things. I'm interested in the 8 forms of capital. I've heard that before. So there we go. All right, I queued somebody up.
No, but I just wanted to do like a shout out to Newman, because he's exactly doing that for me. He's been a support system for me whenever I like get stuck and stuff like that. So I think we need to implement that system, because Newman needs definitely at least a call out from me at least.
I was just saying, it just came to me as it's like, because I do think that I want to put it into a model, and it might be a proposal. It might be a Catalyst proposal to build a model based on accountability and build the app, because it could be super simple to like just make and maybe with Design Academy, like in a conversational thing, like you get like a, 2 people that get together and then they have a robot in the middle. Anyway, we'll talk more about it.
No, not this one. So 8 forms of capital. For those of you who haven't known, this came out of, what was it? Some sort of sustainable living. Can't quite remember. Whatever. So these guys were thinking about what are the forms of capital that exist out there outside of just financial capital, and they came up with these 4. And so they boil it down to: financial is just money and money assets. Material capital is non-living materials. Social capital, I think, was your relationships and your friendships and the influence you built there. It also goes as political capital. Spiritual capital is about rituals, songs, stories. Intellectual capital is your knowledge. Experiential capital is actions, your experience. So it's all about your actions. Cultural capital, I think, I can't quite recall.
Songs, poems, and other stuff.
Okay, then I'm confusing it with spiritual.
And spiritual is the religious and belief and other stuff.
Right. And living capital is land and trees and animals and all that. And this kind of forms together a different way to look at what capital is, rather than just this limited understanding of financial capital. You take a look at the whole picture, and these are all being exchanged for each other all the time, and we're just not aware of it. We just don't think about it that way. And this came out of this Appleseed permaculture. Yes, permaculture. This was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
This came out of systems
So,
thinking in permaculture.
Do you think is exchange possible in all aspects, in all fields of 8 forms of capital? Because, yeah, I think we can exchange material with financial. This is how we do for many years. But for example, for spiritual or intellectual capital, how can we make a fixation to financial capital here?
But how different is it from like a priest in a church that like does sermons and gets paid for it? Very similar to what Newman does, kind of like helps out and gets paid for it. Like, wouldn't it be considered spiritual capital in the context of what we are?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me, because that is there. I'm gaining spiritual capital, or gaining spiritual and experiential capital. Like, this is really like it's no longer I'm getting, I get this. This is important. I would like to see this implemented and say, look, this is that I'm even just the mindset of like, oh, there are different types of capital exchange. You know, I'm spending, I'm spending and generating. No, I'm buying and selling. I'm buying and selling capital. Or, you know, maybe it's not even, it's just a different relationship. You know, it's not just buying and selling. It's not just that simple relationship. There are other types of capitals. There's other types of relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Maybe we can give intellectual capital, and in return we can get some karma. But
Yeah,
we cannot convert this karma to another thing. I get stuck here most of the time.
yeah.
I put a link into an article from seventhgenerationdesign.com called Creating Resilient Wealth, which has some really interesting kind of thoughts on the 8 forms of capital. One of it says, wealth, and especially resilient wealth, is created by transmuting and combining various forms of capital. Simply having a large stock of any particular type matters for nothing if it cannot be transmuted or combined into or with other forms of capital. And they use sourdough bread as an analogy, like just having material capital of the flour is useless. You need to add the natural capital of the starter, the living yeast, time, which is the master resource, skill, which is the intellectual and experiential capital. And that all combines to create bread. It's not just one form of capital. It requires all of it to make the bread.
And getting stuck in that mindset is how like boom bust cycles happen, because, you know, like all of the hoarding and the sort of, it's like figuring out how to bounce it around. I always think about the pachinko machine, which is that one where the ball goes all over, you know, or pinball. It's like you want to make sure that the ball goes everywhere, you know, touches all forms of capital, is involved with all kinds of different relationships. And I think that we really have an opportunity, you know, we have a test bed and opportunity here to do it. Yeah.
So one of the ideas that we had with Gem was, can we use this as the commitment/intention machine, the 8 forms of capital, but then couldn't figure that out either. So it's all in the same domain. Like if we get that down, right, like a building block of the system, like what we're kind of trying to create are just like simple blocks. What is an action? Very simple. You did something, you put it out there, it's an NFT now. Okay. And Ikigai is intention. This is another simple building block. And from that, a bunch of complexity can emerge, because it just allows lots of social human behaviors. And we just got to get that basic blocks right. And then everything's going to just be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the recipe analogy can work, where you need some of this kind of capital and a little bit of this and a little bit of intellectual capital, and that comes together to create the action bread that rises from it.
Oh, yeah.
I like the recipe analogy. That's really good.
Yeah, because the recipe is not just the ingredients. It tells you how, like let the dough rest for 4 hours, or knead it in this way, or preheat the oven. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a recipe. And then if you're a skilled chef, you can add your own flourishes or substitute things because you know what you're doing. So you may not create the same action as someone else, but you still start from the same basic recipe.
I love let the dough rest. That's great. You know, dough like money, you know, you just gotta let it rest.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There are so
Guys?
many ideas and things and movements and stuff happening right now with teal and different things. I think we're fermenting something that wants to happen and be born, and nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like, but we can all feel it's coming, and we're all kind of trying to be that midwife to make it happen. It's really exciting times to kind of, I'm super excited to see how this unfolds.
We are also.
Sure.
I think that people will not work in the companies anymore in 5 years or something, and people divide their times to some chunks, and they will sell that time either in APIs or with human resources. So the rest of the time will be available to us. And we will have, I hope with the help of littlefish, we will have our values, and we can identify them, and we can show our values, like working, doing your job, and finishing, contributing, passion. And this will come up instead of degrees, diplomas, and other stuff. And most of the things will be much more clear for everyone.
I think we'll be learning quite a bit from all the other teal orgs that are experimenting in the space and beyond, like crypto. So many events now. You're finding many of them, Nori, and sending to us in Discord. So many of them. We can just hop in there and just hear one thing, and it's just gonna click, and that.
Yeah, there's stuff happening everywhere. It's so interesting. And that Partech conference event, I was turned on to it by Roberto of Gimba Labs, because he was invited by somebody named Cherries to go. And he told me, he's like, hey, this sounds like it's up your alley. So I connected, and it turns out the organizer of the event lives on the same island as me. She's just north of me. So he was like, wow, this is really local. I had no idea there were people thinking or talking like this nearby, because it's always been like this kind of international community. So it's cool to connect locally too.
Okay. Very cool. Oh man, I guess we're gonna have to start that teal org in Turkey group here. First, what were we gonna do? Blockchain team Turkey, and then teal orgs Turkey. That's fine. It's okay. But thank you guys so much for this. Thank you. See you YouTube, I guess.
Bye, YouTube.
All right.
Like and subscribe. Links below.